Now let's go to Kano. In Kano, yesterday the news broke that the High Court of Kano, the Federal High Court, I think in Abuja, ruled that the removal of Adobayero as the Emir of Kano was unconstitutional. And since it is unconstitutional, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, reinstatement of Sanusi Lamido Sanusi is also unconstitutional. Therefore, Bayero is the Emir of Kano, and Sanusi is the former Emir. That's the ruling, but I want you to listen to this audio recording of that judge reading out his judgments in court. I am the one who put his face on so that you can know who is talking, okay? So this is it. Reading the judgment about Kano, an audio recording of that judgment. Listen carefully.
I think it is a very serious matter for anyone to flout a positive order of court and proceed to taunt the court further by seeking a remedy in a higher court while still in contempt of the same lower court. It is more serious when the act of flouting the order of the court is by the executive. I cannot imagine the halibali this case has caused, exploding the social media with virulent posting both for and against the parties and even against the court. But this avoidable situation, this avoidable near state of catastrophe would have been avoided if the defendants followed the noble path of caution and fealty to the rule of law, no matter their reservation or misgivings. The fact that every legal process must follow its due course, tarry a while would not, if they had tarried a while, it would not have exacerbated or conflagrated the situation almost nearly beyond control. By complying with the order of the court would have meant that they would have stayed all further action towards the implementation of the law, which, for all intent and purposes, until struck down by the court or repealed, would remain valid and enforceable when the legal proceedings are concluded. However, they chose the path of whims and caprices, and it has landed them into these explosive landmines. The Supreme Court in Ojukwo's case held that actions which tend to antagonize the court or intended to subvert the order of the court with
Somebody said it's not audible. That's strange. I could hear it loud and clear. I could hear him there. All right. So what he was saying there is that the judge was angry. He's angry because he believes that the executive was disobeying the court order. The executive just was acting on his own. However, if they think they can still do that with his own court order, all right, which is to say, Adobayero was not legally removed, and therefore the action is sine qua non. It is now void, something like that. So, in response, the Kano state government decided to go straight to that Nasarawa palace that Adobayero has been staying. Yeah. And they're going to demolish it. When they do the demolition, I will bring the video here. But they've actually issued the notice of demolition. Alaye, we need to demolish this palace. But what I do understand is, can Kano go and demolish a house in Nasarawa? Because Nasarawa Palace is in Nasarawa. Abi? Then Kano is in Kano. So the fact that a dethroned Kano Emir is always sent to Nasarawa, Awe, I think it's called Awe or something, in Nasarawa. So Nasarawa is Nasarawa. Anyway, I'll leave that to all of you who are going to possibly tell me more. What I don't know. Tell me what I don't know. So now, Femi Falana has something to say about that in this back and forth. Who is the Emir of Kano? Have they dethroned Sanusi again? Yeah.
What the court did say, from my understanding, and I've had the advantage of reading the proceedings of the court. What the Honorable Justice Lehman did say is that the order made by him on the 24th of May, which according to him was served on the first and the fourth defendant, that's the governor and the attorney general, on the 27th of May, is deemed to have been, they are deemed to have had knowledge of the order because of the fact that the order was reported in the social media. Sanusi Lamido Sanusi was not said to have disobeyed any order. So if the order affects him or affected him, he ought to have been put on notice. But what the court is saying, I cannot declare invalid the repeal law made by the House of Assembly.
Right.
And that repeal law empowers the governor to reinstate Sanusi Lamido Sanusi.
Right.
So is the order is a bit confusing.
It is confusing.
But what is important, which the learned trial judge did not address in his ruling today, is the convenient way by which two solid judgments of the Supreme Court.
I don't know. Is it just me? I think this man is becoming somehow cringy watching him. Okay? He is confused because of that judgment, because he's trying to see how he can explain it. But he can't. So he kept putting up this drama. But I would prefer somebody who kind of like just kind of speak, instead of like that. Because you haven't even said anything. Okay. Lima said, this. We heard what he did, what he said. All right. So he said that Sanusi Lamido Sanusi have been told to stop parading himself as Emir. But Sanusi is still parading himself as Emir. The governor is still acknowledging him as Emir, which is in violation of the court order, sort of. So that's what Falana wanted to say there. He said other things, but I just don't feel comfortable watching him. I don't know about you. I'm sorry. Like, some of you may probably like still watching him, okay? But I just felt like he's not saying anything. So to say, and that's what I wanted you to see, okay? He was talking about Kano. I would rather listen to this guy, though, who is saying something about the confessor Bajue.
Mr. President should be the president of Nigerians and think about Nigerians first, not his foreign partners, and do what is needful. Tax the rich. Don't push the poor to the wall. Also, always remember that you are not the only one that fought for democracy. There are a lot of people that fought for democracy. Wale Soyinka fought for democracy, even though he has been very quiet lately. I know he has a good relationship with Tinubu, so we know why. Shore fought for democracy. Fela fought for democracy. A lot of people died during Abacha time. when Tinubu was on exile together with Wole Soyinka. Dele Momodu fought. So the largest canvas in Africa that was unveiled that had President Tinubu face, that is a big messed up. You should have even Abiola that died for democracy face was not on that canvas. So what are you celebrating? This is not all about you. This is about Nigeria. It's called Democracy Day. Unleash the faces of heroes that fought for democracy, not you. You are part of those people that fought for democracy. You are not the hero of democracy. Put the faces of those who died for democracy. So please, whenever you are thinking or making a policy, make a policy that will affect Nigerian policies. Mr. President.
This was before the Ebion Power Bangal. I kind of will leave it at that. All right. So let's see. We have an hour, 20 minutes before the end of this brunch time. So I'm going to ask, would you want us to just go read, which is going to be another chapter from our book within that time, and call it a day? Or you would rather just take calls because you want to react to all of this? Which one? I'll come back. Whichever one we choose, I'll come back and then we can continue from there. Okay? So don't go anywhere. So we are going to read, and to everybody, everyone who has been following this, it is ideal for you to possibly, if you miss any, possibly go back onto the diary and look out for the white malice reading. You will see there. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. We are currently at chapter 11. So I'm going to start the reading from chapter 11. It's not much. Okay. Then I've got chapter 12 as well. I could go through all of that within the next hour. That's about 22 pages. So if we can cover that, that would be great. So I'll be taking a break, but there will be no calls because of time. So you just have to keep that till evening time if I come on. Okay. So thank you so much as you are joining. Remember, you need to like the broadcast, okay? Like it, share it. So important. Now, the last time we were reading the white malice, this. So we were at chapter 10. That was the moment we are beginning to see the emergence of Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, the formation and the infiltration of some of the African independence movement of the time that led to the neocolonialism or colonialism of Africa. So you can grab a copy of this book if you are a very good, if you are somebody who love reading, like for your quiet time. I love it, but I didn't have any quiet time anymore. So I just share that with people here. I could read to you. Okay. So thank you so much if you have been following before now. So let's continue. Here is chapter 11, the Africa division of the CIA. Let me see which one is cool. If I'm reading to you like this. The Africa Wahala, which one is cool? For me, just staring up that way or just reading like this or both. But let's start with this first, okay? In the middle of November 1959, just a few months after Larry Devlin's appointment as CIA chief of station, I think I should be staring at you like this. In the Congo, a dedicated Africa division was created in the CIA's Directorate of Plans. Previously, the African continent had been covered by the Near East and Africa Division. Henceforth, the number of CIA stations in Africa increased rapidly by over 50% between 1959 and 1963. I don't thank you. So, the first chief of the African division was Bronson Tweedy, known as Bronze by friends and colleagues. Tweedy was a Princeton-educated old-school career spook with a background in naval intelligence during World War II. After the war, he returned to his pre-war career in advertising and was then recruited by the CIA. Well built and graying around the temples, he was described by an investigative journalist as cosmopolitan in manner with a mellow film star voice. Before being appointed as head of the African division, he had served as chief of station in Vienna and then London. In his new position, Tweedy reported to Richard Dick Bissell Jr., Deputy Director for Plans, DDP, from the start of 1959. Tweedy's deputy was Glenn Fields. Dick Bissell reported to Alan Dubes, the director of the agency as a whole. Bissell's deputy was Richard Elms, who went on to become director of the CIA in 1966 to 1973, and was convicted in 1977 of misleading Congress in relation to covert operation in Chile. The Directorate of Plans the Directorate of Plans was responsible for CIA clandestine operations, which included the removal from power of foreign leaders who were seen as a threat to U.S. interests, such as Jacobo Arbenz, the president of Guatemala, whose 1952 land reform program had enraged wealthy planters, and the United Fruits Company, a huge American corporation. Arbenz was overthrown in 1954 in a CIA operation codenamed PB Success. The CIA was housed at this time in about 40 offices that were scattered around Washington, D.C., many of them in the area known as Foggy Bottom. A huge new headquarters was being constructed in Langley, Virginia, but it was not ready for service until September 1961. John Stockwell recalled his experience of working for the CIA in his memoir, In Search of Enemies. The Africa Division, he recalled, was rooted not only in the concrete offices of Washington, but in a network of relationships across the world. the clandestine services, he wrote, in a small clubbish unit of 4,500 people, compartmented into geographic divisions, Africa Division itself had less than 400 staffers, and after 10 years, I knew nearly all of them. Our assignments and operational travels overlapped and crisscrossed like the trails of migrating wildebeest on an East African plain. He added, a night on the town in Paris, a 3-day course in lockpicking at headquarters, lunch in a Nairobi restaurant, all years apart can be enough for a kind of understanding rare in other lines of work. The African Division was created against a background of concern at the highest level in the highest levels in Washington about the way forward for Africa. Bleak opinions were expressed about the future of the continent, with the exception of South Africa. At a meeting on 14 January 1960 of the National Security Council, President Eisenhower reviewed the matter of US policy towards Africa. There was a perceived need, he observed, for access to such military rights and facilities and strategic resources as may be required in our national security interests. Allen Dulles explained to the Council the position of the CIA. The chances in Africa of orderly economic development and political progress towards self-determination, he asserted dismissively, were just about nil. The president agreed. So did Vice President Nixon. He reported that Ghana, according to the British, had only a 50% chance for an orderly development. Nixon then offered his personal opinion of people living on the African continent. In quotes, some of the peoples of Africa, he maintained, have been out of the trees for only about 50 years. Later in the evening, Maurice Stans, a senior member of the Eisenhower administration who had recently visited the Belgian Congo, suggested that Nixon was being too generous in his opinion of Africans. He himself, he said, had formed the impression that many Africans still belonged in the trees. No one at the meeting, including Eisenhower and Dulles, challenged this deeply offensive characterization by Nixon and Stans. Nixon shared his conviction that America should associate with the strong men in Africa. We must recognize, although we cannot say it publicly, he argued to the Council, that we need the strong men of Africa on our side. Nixon pushed his argument further. He believed that it would be impossible to stop the process of independence in Africa. It was therefore necessary, he said, not simply to support strongmen, but actively, in some cases, to develop military strongmen as an offset to communist development of the labor unions. Such a policy ran counter to America's publicly stated commitment to democracy for all nations. But Eisenhower agreed. At the start of April 1960, Tweedy produced a memorandum for CIA use on American policy in the Belgian Congo. Its particular concern was the handling of Lumumba, who had been working since 14th March as one of the 6 commissioners responsible for the administration of the Belgian colony in the lead-up to independence. In quote, our feelings, said Tweedy, is that there is so much at stake in preventing the placing of Lumumba in a prominent role that although we admittedly do not have great resources, we should make every effort possible. A handwritten note by Tweedy at the bottom of the memorandum called for swift action. P.S. Irrespective of any Belgian financial support, it is most important that some CS clandestine services, money and influence get in there quick. But despite his wish to diminish Lumumba's role. Tweedy judged that it would be unwise to alienate him and his supporters. A couple of weeks later, Tweedy wrote to Joseph Satterwhite, the Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, with a careful warning. Although we consider him unscrupulous and willing to accept aid from anyone if it would help him, we suggest the possibility of limited funding to Lumumba, along with other selected leaders. This would provide relatively more help to other leaders, but would also keep the door open for future Lumumba contacts and perhaps avoid